Okay, this is the first, I believe, crypto briefing and symmetry and brief. The first, at least, we've but it's been quite an eventful week, so that's why we're kind of expanding beyond Discord. I'm the editor in chief at Crypto Brief, and I'm joined by a host of our editorial and research experts to break down what's been a very eventful week, or just over a week in the space. It's been one of the wildest few days I can remember since joining a few years ago, and there are potentially going to be far-reaching consequences for the entire industry over what's played out over the past few days. We titled this space as What's Next for SBF, which is, of course, a reference to Sam Bankman Fried, the former CEO of FTX Exchange and co founder of Alameda Research, an allegedly unofficially affiliated trading firm. Um, over the last few days, people have started referring to Sam as scam, bank run, fraud, and I'm not sure I can blame them from what we've seen play out. Now, this is a saga that's lasted several days. It kicked off with a CoinDesk report that we all read saying that Alameda was in trouble. We saw CZ get involved over last weekend, and then FTX faced a liquidity crunch, it was described as. The situation intensified, and today, in the past couple of hours, we've just seen the exchange file come out saying it's filing for bankruptcy and SBF is stepping down as CEO. The memes have been world class, but on a serious note, people are facing massive financial losses and the impact is going to be severe for years to come. This call is to talk about what went down, what happens next, and how the industry moves forward. So, to kick off, I want to invite Tom. Can you give us a breakdown of what happened this week? And yeah, what's your take on what we've just seen play out with FTX, SBF, and Alameda as well?
Hey everyone, can you hear me good? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tom. All good.
Sweet. Okay, so there's a lot of unpack here. So pardon me if I miss a detail or another. I'm sure someone else will pick up on it. So it kind of started like last week with a CoinDesk report, maybe 2 weeks ago with a CoinDesk report that essentially was analyzing Alameda Research's balance sheet. So Alameda Research was created by Sam Bankman-Fried. I think it was in 2017, 2 years before he created FTX. It's a quantitative trading company that essentially like used a lot of stuff that Bankman-Fried learned when he was at Jane Street, traditional finance. And what happened is that the CoinDesk report essentially like leaked like the company's balance sheet and said like one of the notable things about the balance sheet was that a lot of Alameda's assets were like in illiquid Solana tokens, essentially like FTT, Sol, some FTT, some Sol, but also like Serum, Maps, a few others that I do not remember right now. But like, there was something very worrying about the balance sheet because I've got the number right here. They stated they had like 5.82 billion dollars worth of assets in FTT, but like the market capitalization of FTT, like at large, was 4.87 billion. So there was no possible way they could capitalize on on the entirety of their funds without crashing the FTT market. Essentially, like they did not have the amount of money that their balance sheet saying they could. So FTT is FTX's native token. FTX is the exchange created by Bankman-Fried. The token was used in FTX so that you could get trading fee discounts. I think it was up to 60% trading fee discounts if you held like a large bag of FTT. So because both firms, so the leaked balance sheet kind of like drew eyes at like Alameda, where everyone's like, well, what's going on here? and by association to FTX, because the two firms, because they've been created by Bankman-Fried, and because they've been known to be like what's the word, like associated, like closely associated, like doing a lot of stuff together. There was kind of like FTX got like I won't say like associated with that balance sheet problem, and but those were pretty much just rumors. When because like the balance sheet was supposed to be from June, and it was like a statement from CoinDesk and everything like that. But when Binance CEO CZ like stated, I think it was on Monday or on Sunday, that Binance would be liquidating its FTT stash, which was worth somewhere between $500 million and $2 billion. When Binance like said they'd start liquidating their FTT stash, this kind of got like the rumors kind of got confirmed in some ways. That people started like withdrawing their so people started like withdrawing their funds from FTX, and it ended up causing quite a sort of bank run. Withdrawals started like slowing down. I think that was on Sunday already. By Monday, FTX was on damage control. Like Bankman-Fried was essentially saying like everything is fine, our assets are fine, don't worry about it, and everything like that. Unluckily, like things were not fine. On Tuesday, the assets started like withdrawals paused completely, though there was still no official like statement from FTX. And then came kind of like the shocking revelation that like FTX was going to be acquired by Binance because Binance was stepping in to help it with its liquidity problem. So that was the real signal that things were going like awfully wrong for FTX. The deal with Binance, we don't have details on it, but essentially it seems like the Binance was like going to step in and provide liquidity so that all of FTX's customers could be made whole and be able to withdraw their tokens. But after a day, Binance withdrew from the deal, saying essentially like kind of like implying that the hole was not only like was too big, but also saying that like customer funds had been misused. So after that, like things just got like much worse for FTX because essentially it like Binance is the biggest crypto exchange in the world. So if Binance couldn't do anything to help the exchange, it meant that the company was most probably going down. SBF posted like a long Bankman-Fried posted a long thread like that is like that things were screwed, and saying that Alameda was going to run down, apologizing for it, and everything like that. Then later on, he started like so. At first, it seems like on Monday, the size of the hole in FTX's balance sheet was around $1 billion, but like that number kept increasing day after day. The latest number that we've heard, I think it was yesterday, people were talking about a $9.4 billion hole in FTX's balance sheet. But we've seen, but since Alameda's filed for bankruptcy, Alameda and FTX both filed for bankruptcy today. It looks like the hole in the balance sheet is like worth something between $10 billion and $50 billion. We'll have to kind of like wait for investigations to see what happens. So this is like this is kind of like shocking for like a lot of reasons. FTX like we kind of like made like a shoot like he had a reputation in the crypto space for being like a very acute businessman. He was like perpetually like throwing money at a lot of like things, including like buying the FTX arena, like the arena rights, like so they could like name the arena FTX. He pledged like billions of dollars to political campaigns. He's the one who said that he's the one who kind of like stepped in when in June Celsius and other lenders like started like imploding because of a liquidity crisis created by Terra and 3AC. So he's kind of like the last person you'd expect to end up with like such a hole in like his company's balance sheet. In any case, that's the like FTX and Alameda have both filed for bankruptcy today, and SBF has resigned. I think that's like the broad strokes, but there's a lot more to this.
Thanks, Tom, for that. Yeah, very in-depth overview. Yeah, lots to unpack here. Obviously, you just said towards the end how, yeah, no one sort of expected this with Sam, because he was like quite, he's obviously a very smart guy and just seemed like a savvy businessman. And yeah, I think that's something that we've seen over the course of this week. It's like the shock, I think, and I think that's the thing that has kind of yeah, just like taken everyone by surprise, is that it's like it's happened to Sam. Like 3AC, sure, that was shocking, and like Terra was kind of shocking, but maybe not, because Terra's mechanism was flawed and Do Kwon had this kind of personality about him. But like Sam Bankman-Fried, it really did take people by surprise. But at the same time, people have had these suspicions for a while, right? Like about Alameda and FTX. Not that there was like this going on with like misdirection of funds, but the link between them has been something that like people have talked about in the past, and like it's always been a slightly open secret and like an uncomfortable topic. What does everyone think on this, Tim? Like, why did we not see this coming if like the trading firm and the exchange are so openly like kind of linked together? And yeah, like what are your thoughts on what we've seen play out over the past few days?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good. We can hear you, Tim.
All right, cool. I think that, he puts on such a good persona, and, Sam Bankman-Fried, he has a reputable background. His parents are both Harvard lawyers. When he graduated from MIT, worked on Jane Street, and, he talked a good talk. He was all into effective altruism, he was vegan. By all accounts, you think, oh, this is just, like a slightly quirky but well-meaning guy who, wants to use crypto to, affect some change in the world in a positive way. So that I can definitely understand that side of things. But at the same time, there were clues if you looked for them. And I think it's hard to decide how much weight you want to give them, but there are certain comments he made, like regarding crypto, where he would say things like, I'm only here because I think it's the easiest way to create as much wealth as possible, in a short amount of time, so that I can use that for effective altruism. And he said something to that effect a few times as well. So, at the end of the day, there were reasons to doubt him, but I mean, yeah, we always like to think the best of people. I think that's what it comes down to, and you really don't expect fraud on this level to happen very often, and perhaps it's kind of like a once in a decade thing. Something like this happens. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I think you rounded that up well, saying like once in a decade thing. I mean, people were comparing this to crypto's Lehman moment. I mean, I know we did with Terra, but a lot of what I've noticed over the past few days, and just talking to friends, like other people who buy crypto and stuff, they've kind of all said that they think that this is actually going to cause a lot more damage than Terra, and like everyone was kind of not so shocked by that in a way, and it was like, yeah, the wipeout happened, but it's probably good for the ecosystem. But this is like, it could be devastating, right? Because we have like potential regulatory repercussions and all this kind of thing. But yeah, like Sam himself, yeah, we talked about his personality. I mean, in some ways, he did remind me a little bit of some of the other figures that have emerged, like, and obviously these guys that have gone from sort of heroes and had massive falls from grace to villains this year. People like Do Kwon and obviously Suzu from Three Arrows. Jacob, I know you've been following this case pretty closely and you have a lot of thoughts on how Sam is as a person. Did you see this coming with him? What were your thoughts on him before this week? And how can we learn from what's happened and sort of his character? Are there people like this? Because next time, if there's a villain like this, how are we going to spot them? Because there will be another one, right? If we've had how many emerged this year? Yeah, what's your thoughts there? I'm not sure we can hear you, Jacob. Nivesh or Anton, do you want to hop in here, maybe?
Yeah, I will hop in. So the problem of this identification is that we are all human, and there is a reason why people couldn't see stuff like Enron. There is a reason why not everyone could have seen 2008 crisis. It's a confidence game, and there are like books on the topic, and that's part of human psychology. Even though we will have whistleblowers like we did with SBF and with Terra, and people in TradFi got those whistleblowers as well. The majority will be asleep at the wheel until the very last moment. So individually, how we can identify and be like contrarians and like potentially find whistleblowers, I think just keep like reminding yourself of your personal experience when you see people en masse relying on things like status, education, place in a hierarchy, etc., etc. If there is a lot of respect, it's just your like yellow flag, essentially. So start listening to people who criticize that person, who like try to scrutinize them, and then assess their arguments. Are they valid arguments or not? So that you will be at least ahead of the curve, because I don't think it's for an individual to figure this kind of situation in advance on their own, because we had several outcomes like this, Terra being the latest one, and I haven't seen an individual account or like even high profile account that would, like in a structured way put reasons why something is going to fall. It was just like basically anticipations, emotions, stuff like that. You can really rely on that, and nobody can give you better than this. So just don't trust, verify, mantra of crypto.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anton. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Sam himself, I've followed a lot of his kind of posts over the past few days. I mean, he hasn't said a lot, but I've looked pretty closely at the stuff he has put out. I mean, we got a statement on Thursday, which was his admission. So he says, "I'm sorry, I fucked up." We also saw the post that Kobe shared, which was basically like a note that he sent to the FTX team, similarly apologizing. But the latest that we've heard is that other than like a Slack message, basically, it sounds like most people got radio silence at FTX. And these are like, it's quite a slim team as well. So these are like his early employees. A lot of them have come out saying they were kept in the dark. And I mean, when you think about the position FTX was in, or the supposed position it was in just a week ago, raised funds this year at a $32 billion valuation. So if you're one of these employees that's getting 1% or even 0.1% of that, you're expecting a pretty hefty pay cut. Allegedly, according to a screenshot that's done the rounds, there's something Autism Capital shared, and we've seen elsewhere. There was like a way that they were raising money, like Sam and the Inner Circle were raising funds, which is by selling FTX's stock at a 50% discount. And this supposedly happened after Alameda run into trouble, and they were pushing this campaign to get staff on board with this in October. And yeah, apparently there are like a lot of staff that lost everything on FTX because they had the stock options and whatever else, and they just kept all their crypto on the exchange as well and really kind of used it like a bank account. We've also seen this stuff emerge about how there was kind of like Sam and some people around him, including his one-time or perhaps still partner Caroline Ellison of Alameda. It's quite shocking to me. It does sound a bit like a cult, dare I say. I mean, how much of this should we pin on Sam himself? Because he's obviously taking a lot of the brunt at the moment, but there were like a few involved, and the blame has been pinned on him, and he's the one that stepped down. But yeah, it seems like he wasn't alone. Mitchell, what do you think of this, and what do you think the consequences are going to be for like the rest of the FTX team and those who were kind of acting as his accomplices?
I mean, it's pretty messed up. Like, we've been seeing a lot of high-level people in the company have been just getting shut out of Slack and weren't even aware of the extent of the woes that I was facing up until like the very end and getting that information from Twitter. So I do think that there's certainly an inside circle around Sam that should be held accountable. I'm not sure where that team's going to be at or through which legal system that is, but I can't imagine that an exchange going under for what seems to have been fraud, those people can get away without facing any consequences. So I do hope that Sam, Caroline, and the other people that were directly involved in making the choices that resulted in the collapse of FTX are somehow held accountable. And ideally, I think in the US would be the place that I'd have the most trust in actually rendering some sort of justice.
Yeah, thanks, Mitchell. You mentioned Caroline there. So for those not aware, this is Caroline Ellison, who's currently sitting in as the CEO of Alameda Research. Has kind of gone bust now, so that's title sort of redundant. But yeah, she was the CEO, and it's Caroline who was involved in the discussion over the last weekend. So basically, when this was unfolding, it really started between Caroline and CZ, like before Sam, because it was like CZ knowing that Alameda had all this FTT. He said, "Oh, guys, we've got like a massive bag of this because we invested in FTX, and I'm going to dump it," basically. And he said, I think he used in one of his tweets, he referenced Luna as well, so he was really planting the seed in people's heads, like FTT is like Luna kind of thing, and it was quite prophetic because it did result in a death spiral the same way. But yeah, Caroline was the one who went back to CZ as well and was like, "Oh, we'll buy all your FTT at $22," almost paraphrasing that famous tweet from Sam where he talks about $3 Solana. But yeah, I wanted to zoom in on her and play. Hopefully you guys hear it, but this is a clip that's been doing the rounds over CT over the past sort of 24 hours. And this is Caroline speaking in an interview from a little while back. Let's just listen and get people's takes when that's done.
Yeah, absolutely could pull it off without my math degree. Use very little math. Use a lot of elementary school math. Being comfortable with risk is very important. We tend not to have things like stop losses. I think those aren't necessarily a great risk management tool. I'm trying to think of a good example of a trade where I've lost a ton of money. Well, I don't know. I probably don't want to go into specifics too much with that.
Hopefully, you guys heard that. Yeah, Nivesh, what's your thoughts on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like the first principle of trading is placing stop losses and having risk management. So, I mean, I saw that video when it came out, and I think I was under the assumption that, yeah, this guy is really knows his stuff, or he came from Mars or something. But yeah, biggest mistake and learning, and we are still learning from a mistake. So, yeah, like risk management, like, and to use people's funds, I mean, and then lie about it blatantly uh, on channels. It's quite something, but yeah, maybe when you have billions, you could do that.
Yeah, thanks, Nivesh. I mean, I'm no trader, but yeah, stop loss does seem like the kind of 101 of trading, at least from what I understand, and what friends who are in that side of things have told me. But yeah, Caroline to one side. I want to go back to a story from a few weeks ago, and this was kind of the stuff about how of executives quitting their positions around the same time. So there were several departures in like a very short period. One of them was Jesse from Kraken, and there were a few others. But the two that strike me, one was Brett Harrison from FTX US, who was the former president there, and also Sam Trabucco. For those not aware, Sam Trabucco, not to be confused with bank run fraud, as he's now known, was one of he was CEO of Alameda with Caroline. I think they did it together. And he quit, I think it was around September, and said he was going to go off and spend some time on a boat. Now, the timing of this is interesting because it happened in between Terra collapsing and them kind of having this hole to fill in their balances and what we've seen play out this week. Without putting a tinfoil hat on, what do you make of this, Jacob? Let's see if your mic's working. Because to me, it doesn't seem coincidental.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
It's a little quiet. Maybe put the mic closer to you.
I'll move in a little bit. How is that?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. The first of them being that I was, to answer the question you asked me earlier, I was quite surprised by this, in no small part because SBF had made such a show of cozying up with politicians and regulators and having his picture taken with important people and even stopping by the White House and all these things. And you would think that, if you're going to develop close ties with people like that, people who could, nab you if you did something wrong, then you might be a little bit more careful about doing it. But for whatever reason, a lot of these guys were not. So to bring it up to the question you're asking now about all these departures over the summer, yeah, I think what we're starting to see maybe is that this may have more to do with the Terra collapse than we may have initially thought. At least I don't know the extent to which Alameda was involved in anything involving Terra. I don't know, but I know a lot of these companies are lending money to each other behind closed doors, and there's only so much you can track on chain, right? So yeah, I remember thinking this summer that it did seem like these guys knew something was up, and let's not forget that sort of very poorly aged Forbes article in which SBF alluded to some firms being, quote, secretly insolvent. And that's on an entirely new level of meaning now. So, yeah, I guess to circle back to Tim's point, there were clues that something was wrong, but I wouldn't have thought FTX was in such monumental trouble. That said, I've always thought the relation between FTX and Alameda is suspicious, to say the least. And now it's turning out that it's probably even worse than we thought.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jacob. I mean, when it was playing out this week, I remember us kind of saying like, oh yeah, maybe it's like Alameda is in trouble, but yeah, it's probably not going to be FTX kind of thing. And yeah, we were obviously blindsided, as were many sort of participants in the space, by the fact that FTX had this $9.4 billion hole, and yeah, as you said there, the link to Terra and how it looks like this was kind of a root cause to a lot of this. When Terra happened, we obviously saw a few weeks later the downfall of the once great Throws Capital and various other major players, many of them crypto lenders who had exposure to Three Arrows and Terra, and it does seem like, well, we already know that there is going to be like a similar contagion effect here. We've already seen BlockFi halt withdrawals. Genesis disclosed it was taking a 9-figure loss, I think, to the tune of 175 million. Galaxy is down as well. Beyond that, you had personalities like Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen, who were massive supporters of FTX and appearing in their adverts at the Super Bowl and what have you. Very likely that other firms are in a lot of trouble now as well. Tim, how bad is this, and how do you think we should be worried versus what happened with 3AC? Do you think it's going to be worse? What are your thoughts on the whole contagion side of things, and how bad is this going to be?
Compared to 3AC, yes, it's going to be worse. Feel pretty certain in saying that. I mean, there's been a few, quote unquote, leaked balance sheets coming out. I don't know if any of them are too real, but if they are, it shows that Alameda and FTX have been holding massive amounts of equity in tens, if not hundreds of different projects and companies. Some of them have tokens on the market. Some of them, their own equity. It's you think about it. You think, where do I even begin trying to, get a grip on what can be affected here? I guess look out in the news. Like I said, there's Genesis, there's Mike Novogratz, there's Galaxy Digital, both confirmed publicly that they've lost tens of millions. But I imagine what's more relevant to people listening is like projects, DeFi projects, for example, things that they might hold tokens for. To speak to this, I know Layer Zero have or are in the process of buying back the tokens that Alameda bought from them earlier this year. So they seem pretty secure on that. But of course, there's many other projects that might not be. So I would say to anyone, do some research. There's plenty of resources on Twitter. I've seen a lot of accounts also looking into this to try and help people manage their risk. Just overall to finish, expect there to be big repercussions from this, not just institutional exposure, of which there is a lot. I would say take a look at the January fundraise where FTX raised, I think, 400 million at a $32 billion valuation. Lots of investors there that are going to be burned. And what was the other thing I was going to mention? So a lot of institutional investors. I've lost it. But we expect that Alameda and FTX probably own a lot of sort of what they're classing as semi-liquid assets. This things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, probably Solana as well. That now that they are going to be liquidated, they've declared bankruptcy, they're going to hit the market one way or another. This kind of happened with 3AC, and we saw a big liquidation cascade there. That was kind of like pushed the market down a lot. So look out for that. It's probably coming. Position yourself accordingly, or if you're not comfortable, sit it out. I would say we haven't seen the end of this yet.
Thanks, Tim. I mean, I remember when the 3AC stuff happened, we spent a lot of time kind of looking at whether we thought the bottom was in around then. I remember ETH, for example, went down to about $800 or $900, and to me that felt like a bottom signal, and it was like 11 weeks of red in a row for Bitcoin. And yeah, that was quite like, I guess now in retrospect, it's like maybe not, given that the kind of Bitcoin really didn't take long to sort of tumble down to like around the 16,000 mark this week. Yeah, I mean, ETH is holding up quite well. Obviously, Solana got decimated, which isn't a particular surprise given the tight relationship it had with FTX. We'll see if it comes out of this. It does have a strong community. Nivesh, what do you think on the whole Solana side of things? I mean, some of their NFTs are down really bad. From what I understand, there was an unlock schedule this week, and there's like basically a lot of damage across Solana DeFi as well. Are you still watching Solana? And yeah, what's your thoughts on this? Is it going to outlast the SBF winter?
Well, yeah, I was just checking Serum and Radium yesterday, like the top decentralized exchanges on Solana, and those have less than 50 million in total liquidity right now. And the only thing that was like not only thing, but yeah, like the most popular thing on Solana were NFTs, and obviously they are down. So, and we also have a history of frequent downtimes with Solana. And like I know from personal experience, like working during the bull market, the transactions were cheap, they were fast, but only when they went through. There were a lot of hiccups, and most of the NFT launches were not smooth. That is probably the reason why the PFP hype, which took on Ethereum and sustained on Ethereum for a while, did not really like go well on Solana. And and FTX going down, obviously, like they were one of the biggest investors there, so it's going to take a toll on them. But then again, it's a blockchain that has had a real world test, and if Anatoly and Raj Gopal, like the top two founders, continue working on it, improving improving the consensus layer, and giving enough reassurances to developers that there isn't going to like it's improved, like there wouldn't be downtimes, and it's better than it was in 2021. Then I do see a future for Solana. It's not like the end of it. And if there are projects coming up on it in the next year or so, then and if it just manages to survive until the next bull market, whenever it happens, then it might have a chance. But yeah, that is not to say that I would be buying at $15 right now. I still expect it to go down a lot. So yeah, I will be watching the space, but I don't think that completely ignoring it would be fair.
Well, what about all the financing that used to go through FTX Ventures? And they also have a nonprofit foundation where a lot of these projects would receive grants. Like, I'm not sure if I can be bullish on Solana right now when the main sources of funding for people building on that ecosystem will probably dry up in the coming month or two.
Well, yeah. If you look at it, it did for Ethereum as well in the last bear market. So it just comes to how these founders are able to encourage the developers into still putting their work hours, maybe as a side job or something. But Solana has like developed an ecosystem of developers with hackathons all around the world. So maybe some of them do stick around, but it's obviously a very bad position, and there is like more chances of them failing than succeeding. But still, I would be a little bit optimistic because maybe it's a blockchain in the end, and if it continues to work, there is even a little bit of activity, then it might take off in the future.
Yeah, I mean, as Nivesh said, I wouldn't discount the sort of community aspects of Solana. I mean, if I pull up their Twitter page, because whenever I seem to visit it, it seems to have like a million new followers. They are like pretty big compared to a lot of other so-called layer ones. I mean, 2.2 million, yeah, on the community side. And although there are all these botched NFT launches, it definitely is the most notable NFT ecosystem behind ETH. But yeah, it's going to be a case of sort of distancing themselves from SBF based on how, he was the one that arguably became the sort of the front man for the ecosystem last year, and it was really, I think he was quite a big influencer on the fact that it went from $3 to $259 in the space of 11 months or whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, moving on from Solana, this is probably a good time to talk about prices and the impact that this is having on the market itself. We saw this week there was like inflation had eased. I think it was down to 7.7 from like 8.1 or so. Usually that would be pretty well received news. It was kind of like yeah, I think like Bitcoin sort of went up a bit, but most people just didn't care, and it really became like a side note of what else was happening, as there was more like shocking news coming out on FTX. Nathan, how just to ask you on like the market side of things, have you been watching Bitcoin, and how are you looking to play things over the coming months based on what's come out of this week?
Yeah, sure. I think in terms of looking like a few months ahead in that, I think there's probably a folly, because it's such a long time away. I think given the current environment that we're in, it's probably best to, for me, I'm just looking at things on a week by week basis. Based on the possible contagion in the industry, I think the best thing to do, is just to really see what the day's news events are, and then try to base your trading strategy around there. I've definitely, for a long time, anybody who's a regular reader of the weekly crypto roundup that I produce on a Monday, or my daily Pro BTC newsletters, they'll know that I was looking for the market to reverse from 21.5 and then go towards 14,000. So 14,000 would really be the area that I'm looking for the market to test. Current order book data shows a stack of orders between 14 and 13,000. So that will be the first big test for me for Bitcoin in terms of a trading strategy for our subscribers. That's an area that I've been looking to probably get some exposure, but I try to weigh that up against the current news environment. Something that is very encouraging for crypto at the moment is that the US dollar, it does look like it's topped out. The current inflation figures and what we're seeing from the Federal Reserve members, it certainly alludes to the fact that there could be a major top in for the US dollar, and that's something very positive for Bitcoin. Additionally, I think the Nasdaq had its largest one-day rally in nearly a decade yesterday. That potentially looks to have bottomed as well, although maybe it's a little bit too early to say. But with them sort of factors in the background, and if we can get past the FTX incident in the next few weeks, and we don't breach the 13 to 14,000 level, then I think it sets up a very exciting backdrop in that crypto's got a lot of catching up to do in terms of other asset classes. And if we can see some type of stability around FTX and other exchanges, then I think that there's a strong chance that we could get a quick. I don't think it'll be next week. I don't think it'll be the week after. But I think it's coming. And I think in terms of the cryptos that I have been looking at and other correlations, I like to have various targets for cryptos, and them all sort of align at the same time, hitting those various targets. And what I have been looking at is the crypto total market cap chart, heading towards the 500 billion mark. I think we're probably around 700 now, so getting down to that sort of area, and if that could correlate with a $13,000 or $14,000 Bitcoin, maybe a $800 ETH, maybe a $30 Litecoin, and maybe a 25 cents Ripple. Those are the type of areas that I'd be looking at, because I have felt for a long time that there is one major buying opportunity coming up in crypto, and that's the exciting time for me, that when we're starting to approach some very tasty levels where you probably wouldn't mind trying your hand. And obviously we're not far from the full 2021 retracement when crypto started to break out anyway. So those are the sort of areas I'll be looking at, and on-chain signs that I'll be looking for, like major outlier spikes in all the exchanges of previously marked trend changes, and also like sentiment capitulation. We're nowhere near that at the moment. So those are the sort of things that I'll be looking at around that next few weeks. And obviously, as I come on this talk each Friday, I'll keep you posted, and I'll be discussing if anything changes. But that's my current strategy, how I'm approaching things.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan.
Thank
helpful insights as ever. Hey, Naka, how's it going?
Hey, sorry I'm a little late.
Seeing you join.
Yeah. So guys, what's the deal? Have we decided which prison he's going to, or have we decided on the electric chair? I'm okay with either.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question in itself. Is Sam gonna end up in jail? Something I was actually planning to write this weekend was like a piece on. I'm like reached out to some lawyers to kind of get their insights on this. Will Sam end up in jail over this, and is anyone else going to be sort of dragged along with him? What's your take, Naka?
I think 40,000 volts will solve the problem. About 3 seconds, it's all done.
Right, yeah, fair. I mean, yeah, weighing it up, I've kind of looked at how things have played out. I mean, a lot of the space kind of said this for Do Kwon, and obviously Do Kwon is kind of like on the run now, although he claims otherwise. But if I compare like the various, I mean, people said it for Suzu as well. I mean, what Sam has done, it does feel like he's kind of public enemy number one, and there is like a genuine chance that he could meet the face of the law.
But I mean, the thing is, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know whether he's technically committed any crimes. I mean, it's possible that it's not against the law to lie, right? And it's possible that he sort of like had all the fine print so that everything he did was legal.
I really hope that's not the case. I mean, it's so preposterous what SBF did that even the people from Three Arrows and Do Kwon were coming out of the woodwork to comment on it. It's just like, oh man, Sam, you fucked up so big that our mess ups don't even look that bad in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one question is, and I've been asking myself this a lot today, is this actually bad enough to sort of permanently end crypto? Is this the moment where everyone goes, oh shit, this was all a scam, we should never have got into it? I mean, I've been talking to some people who have investments in crypto. There are some people who are already down like 90% and holding. Crypto's already fairly mainstream. I mean, I don't want to be a complete doomer. I think it is probably more likely that crypto survives, but it's certainly this is certainly the kind of thing that makes you ask the question, is this it?
Yeah, I mean, people are kind of describing this as like the Mt. Gox moment of this decade. I mean, is this worse than Mt. Gox? I think some people have said it is worse. I think that's hard to say. It's probably from like a regulatory perspective that it could be. If they really kind of clamp down on like exchanges and this kind of thing, and it becomes difficult to sort of get out of the system into fiat, that's when it becomes like serious bear territory. Jacob, I think you said you were gonna jump in here.
Yeah, I think to answer that question more directly, I think what this changes more than anything is that we can expect to see some fast-track legislation from the U.S. Congress, because let's not forget that SBF was cozying up to these guys. He was making friends with them, and he was gaining their trust. There are some speculations about his connections with Gary Gensler's family, or at least Caroline's connections with Gary Gensler's family, and there's some sort of conspiracy theory floating around on that. But from what at least we know, he was courting these people, and now he has broken their trust. And there's two ways that can go. They can say to themselves, oh, well, we know him, he's our friend, he's cool, and maybe they give him a pass. But more likely, people are going to say, that's it. To hell with this guy, he broke our trust. That's the end of it. And I think what it's going to do is really spur the regulation of centralized, or CeDeFi platforms especially. There are going to be some much stricter rules about what these guys can and can't do with your money, and how they have to disclose it after this, I think.
I mean, the whole idea of CeDeFi was... Can you mute yourself? Jacob. Yeah, so the whole idea of CeDeFi was messed up in the first place. Like, what a joke. And if I said this in a space yesterday, this is Mitchell, by the way, what's the point of creating this permissionless technology if we're just going to recreate the same gatekeepers that already exist in traditional finance through lending and borrowing platforms and exchanges? Like, it's completely preposterous to me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one issue is that this bull run, you know, there are some decentralized alternatives, but they're not really ready yet. Like, you can trade leverage on GMX, but even that's actually still trusted. It's not trustless yet because the Ethereum L2s are not trustless. I mean, yeah, you can. There is decentralized trading. There are even some protocols that are trying to do decentralized leverage trading, like Gearbox Pro. It's just not ready yet, right? A lot of this stuff is just not ready, and so, you know, at this point in time, we do need centralized exchanges, right? And probably for the next 5 years at least.
I think it's also a great reminder that people should certainly keep the majority that's in self-custody if they're not actively trading them. And that's something I've been telling people for the longest time. And this whole FTX blow-up has reminded everybody that keeping your coins on exchanges is not safe, or on any other custodian. Like, I don't trust anybody else except myself when it comes to managing my assets.
On the Sorry, go ahead, Nika.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say is, you know, as long as people are buying crypto with fiat, there's going to be an element of trust involved, right? Because the fiat system is trusted and the crypto system is trustless. And so there's a sort of impedance mismatch between crypto and fiat, and exchanges have to exist until we've completely, like, until the day when fiat is completely abolished and totally replaced with crypto, which we're not anywhere near that. We're going to have exchanges, and they're going to have to be centralized. The reason they're going to have to be centralized is because fiat is centralized, banks are centralized, and so you need a centralized thing to plug into the fiat ecosystem. So, you know, in the wake of this, we are going to have to improve upon centralized exchanges. We're going to have to make them better. And I think I saw some people with, you know, some ideas about that have been going around on various parts of crypto Twitter. I think Adam Cochran, he has a proposal for a much better type of centralized exchange. So there's stuff being worked on.
I was actually going to agree with that because there are, like, it's a pretty grim situation, but like there's already been some around like how centralized exchanges like seem to want to operate. Like proof of reserves is a word that's been coming up a lot. up till now, I think the only major exchange that was operating like with proof of reserves was Kraken, and they were doing weekly or monthly like update basically on their reserves. Binance has announced obviously that like they want to do that. Crypto.com has announced they want to do that. So we may, like, as a silver lining, kind of, we may end up having exchanges like increasing the transparency of their holdings to avoid this kind of like situation. And this would be sort of what like Circle and Tifa are like trying to do with like being regularly like audited and like showing as much transparency as possible. So, but for sure. Yeah, I think like opaque exchanges like FTX are just going to have a very hard time like thriving from now on, because I think everyone is already traumatized by it. So it'd be good for proof of reserves to become like a mainstay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need proof of liabilities as well, because I could run an exchange and prove that I have $1 billion in reserves, but then I actually have $5 billion in client deposits that I've taken. So it would be nice if there was some way to sort of prove that you've deposited a certain amount to an exchange without revealing anything about yourself. Maybe somebody who's good with ZK technology can come up with a solution to that. But if you had a system where exchanges could prove how much had been deposited, drawn, and also prove how much they held, then at least that would allow us to see whether their books are balanced.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, zero knowledge proofs could well be the solution. I mean, yeah, Vitalik has kind of come out and said recently that he sees zero knowledge. There's the whole ZK space as perhaps as disruptive and important as like blockchain itself. And so yeah, if there's a way of kind of doing that, I'm not a cryptography expert, but yeah, that could be something. I mean, something we have seen over the past few, definitely in the Ethereum circle as well, is kind of the core of how this sort of brings us back to the importance of DeFi. I mean, what does everyone think on that? Or is it just that the whole space is down so bad at the moment that DeFi is like not relevant right now? What's it going to take for kind of like a move over and a resurgence in that space? Does anyone have any thoughts?
I mean, more than it is, DeFi is currently working reasonably well in terms of if you have money on something like Aave, you're fine, right? The DeFi has a different problem, right? The problem that DeFi has is that there are no real assets that you can bring into DeFi. You can't bring your house, your car, your business, right? You can only have these imaginary internet Ponzi tokens. But I mean, in terms of at least making sure the books are balanced on the Ponzi tokens, DeFi is doing a great job.
That's a fair point. I mean, think about the ways that individuals tend to access credit. There's consumer credit, and then the biggest loans that people take out are typically against a house or a car. So we start seeing more ways for people to access credit through DeFi, we're probably not going to see a huge amount of like mainstream general adoption. And the main bottleneck for that is attaching individual identities to your ability to access credit, because right now everything needs to be collateralized, and most of the time it is over collateralized. So the use of getting credit through DeFi is like the usefulness is limited because of that.
Yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of things outside of need to change before that can change, right? So if let's say I have a house, right, and I want a HELOC, but with crypto, I would need to be able to prove in a way that was valid on chain that I owned the house, and then that on-chain protocol would have to have a way of liquidating me, right? It would have to have a way to take my house if I became insolvent, right, on that loan. And both of those seem extremely difficult right now. How would you actually do that? how would you do that in a way that kind of matches the way crypto works? So, I mean, probably the first thing that's going to work like that, in my opinion, be things like if there's a crypto social media network, then maybe you could take out a loan against your account, right? You could say, I've got this account with 5,000 followers or 10,000 followers or whatever. It's worth a certain amount of money, so I can take out credit against that. And then that would be easy for the protocol to monitor and easy for the protocol to sort of liquidate me on it if I became insolvent, like take my account away or something.
Yeah, I don't want to. It's a wicked hard problem to solve, the connection between the real world and the crypto / blockchain one. I know that there's been a ton of different property and real estate startups that have been trying to solve this issue since like 2017, 2018, and most of them haven't made way because the the house example you had with the house and the HELOC, it is so deeply embedded into the traditional financial and legal system that extricating that and putting all those elements on chain is going to take a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not going to happen for a very long time. So, most likely what's going to happen is DeFi is going to, instead of DeFi solving the problem of like DeFi HELOCs, it's going to move into areas like computer games and social networks that are already much more similar to crypto in that they're all digital goods, right? So I think DeFi will operate on social networks, games, metaverse, things like that, long before it on real world. But I mean, honestly, just in terms of DeFi itself, I mean, DeFi's done really well, right? There have been hacks, but DeFi hacks is a problem that will improve over time as people get better at defending them, and the code gets better and better standards are brought in, and maybe even to testing. But the problem is DeFi does not do what people want it to do, right? So that's why we have centralized exchanges, right? People want to be able to sell Ripple and buy Cardano, right? But those are different chains, so you can't really do that on chain.
Yeah. On the note about kind of DeFi working, yeah, I mean, I think the TVL is something like 50 billion to today. I don't have it up here, but it's up DeFi, yeah, 44.4 billion. So yeah, obviously, it is like a bear market, and that is way down from what it was. But yeah, it does still work, like you say, like Aave still works, etc. And yeah, that the same can't be said for several of these lenders and these exchanges. Yeah, like FTX. Cool. I mean, yeah, we've talked about DeFi and the kind of potential winter ahead as well. Does anyone have any thoughts on, yeah, the kind of regulatory side of things and how things might play out given what we've seen this week? We saw that the White House is looking into this now, Department of Justice as well, the SEC. Yeah, Jacob, any further thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think these guys are in a lot of trouble. They're high profile standing in the United States, even though they technically weren't incorporated here, but they advertised here like crazy. They lobbied. Yeah, I think they're going to want to punish these guys for sure. Set an example.
Do you know how they're going to get them?
Oh, I don't know what law they broke, but I'm sure they broke something, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know.
I mean, I'm not either, but the idea that they were taking people's money and then secretly doing other stuff with it, and then they lost it all after lying about it and presenting themselves as people who would not do that, I think DOJ is going to find a statute that they broke for sure.
I mean, it doesn't look good that Sam was deleting all these tweets that he's put out. It was weird because it seems like at one point a lawyer was writing everything, and it was like it sounded very much like lawyer speak, similar to when Do Kwon was like not saying much when his crisis was going on. So he said on Monday, like, FTX is fine, assets are fine. And then the killer was, he said, like, FTX has enough to cover all client holdings. We don't invest client assets. We've been processing all withdrawals and will continue to be. And then, like, 24 hours later, that was gone. And now, like, he's come out and the tweet storms he's writing are very much in his style, but obviously he's not saying a lot. Yeah, I mean, if you're deleting stuff like that, I mean, I don't know why. I don't know what his like kind of process was for that. Anton, any thoughts on this? Like, what do you make of him deleting his tracks, and do you think that's going to do more harm than good for him?
Well, I mean, I think there's a law that if you delete the tweet within 24 hours, that's a get out of jail free card in any sensible legal system, right?
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, Sam was playing. It seems this whole space like it was a kind of casino, and he didn't sort of treat it like the real world. That's how I kind of interpret it. So, yeah, maybe he got sort of caught up in that and has that kind of mindset of this is kind of play money, and yeah, we'll see. But yeah, does anyone think that like he'll sort of suffer as a result of his activity over the past few days, and his general response? What does everyone think on that?
I feel like. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I won't be long. I would say absolutely. I think that he's come from quite a privileged background, and I imagine he's quite naive and doesn't think that he's in any danger from the law. And that's probably just share a lot more on Twitter than he should have done. Especially after it came out that the SEC and DOJ were investigating FTX. Yeah, I think it's going to bite him in the ass. And just to quote something that Martin Shkreli said on the Burnley podcast the other day, like in terms of what he's done wrong potentially, like if there's enough willpower in the highest echelons of business or whatever, or finance to bring a conviction against him, it will happen. They'll find something to get him, whether it's like wire fraud or whatever. And yeah, he's pissed off a very powerful people. Just in case you forgot, he invited Tony Blair and Bill Clinton to come speak at his Bahamas conference earlier this year. He's associated with them and a lot of people in government, and they're not going to be happy that he's embarrassed them.
Yeah, very true. Thanks, Tim. I remember us calling it out at the time, and this was something I posted on Twitter the other night, because we had a headline that was like, Blair and Clinton speak on crypto, hang your heads, FTX. And yeah, I mean, he did get slated on Twitter at the time, to be fair, but yeah, now like hang your heads takes on a different meaning. But yeah, like you say, Tim, I agree. Like his activity over the past few days is, probably sort of meant that he's sort of kind of digging a hole. I'll be interested to see what the consequences are for like Caroline and yeah, any of the others that are
Caroline didn't do anything wrong. She's a babe. And if she did do anything wrong, it wasn't her fault.
Good to know.
I think if there was a jury of basically just CT people, they would probably acquit Caroline, but convict SBF and Trabuco.
So you think Trabuco was somewhat? I mean, because he had that timely departure in September.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Maybe he got out because he knew what was going on. Maybe he left because he didn't want to be involved with the shady stuff.
It's possible. We don't know, right? And the thing is, there's going to be a lot of speculation now about what happened. I mean, if you really want me to speculate, I think this sort of thing became a Madoff type scheme the same way Madoff's scheme became a Madoff scheme, which is that it started out honestly, right? Nobody, chooses this as a, as a career, like being a sort of international fraudster. It started out honestly. They fucked up. They became insolvent, but they kept it secret. They thought they could make it all back. And, that just kind of piled up. It kind of, they tried to make it back. They made more bad decisions, more bad trades. And then, by the time it came out, the whole was $10 billion. It probably didn't start as 10 billion, right? It probably started as, a few hundred million or something. Yeah, and that's probably what happened. I don't know how many people were in on it. It seems like a lot of FTX employees quit, and the fact that they're all quitting now makes me believe that probably only the higher ups really knew what was going on, and they sort of, conspired to hide the truth from most of the organization. But again, it's all speculation.
Yeah, thanks, Naka. I mean, yeah, a lot of the recent reports have sort of, been like employees corroborating, and some have come out on Twitter and sort of said that, they were kind of kept in the dark and weren't aware. And it appears that SPF has sort of disappeared as well beyond his Slack message. Anyway, Ayush, just invited you up to speak. How's it going, sir? Did you have a question or comment or reflection on the FTX crisis? And the floor is yours.
Hey everyone. I hope everybody is going good and keeping up with the bad time. I just saw the title and I was like, okay, this is very interesting because this is the time where DeFi is going to give the limelight, and this is the time when people will actually realize that okay, uh, keeping funds into DeFi is much more secure until unless you are not doing a lot of LP mining in various pools or something. But still, you will like you can keep your funds in wallets and all. Like you can be the custodial of your funds. So I think we will see some maturity into the space, and even from the DeFi space now the expectations are higher. So this is like I handle marketing and operations at Uniland Finance. So we are like evaluating everything and looking to deliver a better product for everybody.
We're gonna like draw our conclusions on what comes next with FTX and people's thoughts on what happened. Mitchell, do you want to share? I mean, we've got a number of listeners here, and obviously a lot of these guys are going to be holding crypto as well. What would you kind of advise to people who are kind of panicking and watching what's happened with FTX this week, and how to sort of move forward from something like this?
This is not the first, nor will it be the last big blow up in crypto. So I would say that if you're not completely liquidated right now, like this is the time. I've been sitting on the sidelines for like the last 6 or 7 months, thinking that things could get significantly worse because of the macroeconomic conditions, as well as the like systemic contagion related to Three Arrows Capital. Like I think it's going to take a while to play out because a lot of these firms are very interconnected, and FTX especially was a major central player in the ecosystem. So we're going to see a lot of ripple effects from this contagion. And I wish we spoke a little bit more about that because there's a ton of different DeFi projects that either had their treasuries on FTX or received significant funding from FTX Ventures or Alameda. And now that funding's dried up, we can see a major impact probably in the coming months on the DeFi ecosystem as these projects around Solana and also some of them that receive funding that are building in the Ethereum and like other ecosystems start to see the squeeze. Coupled with like decreasing prices, we're probably going to see a lot of projects go bust like we did in the wake of 2017 and like the next year. But I will also say that if you still have liquid cash, this is probably one of the best possible times to invest in like the 6 to 9 month range. If you're willing to hold for like 2 to 3 years, because that's one of the big mistakes people will make is they'll put their shots in and then they'll basically liquidate themselves with living expenses or something when they can't maintain this position. Even if it goes down significantly, they'll be forced to sell. And I saw a lot of that happen, like during the May crash of like right as COVID was kicking off and Bitcoin dropped below 4K. I saw a lot of people just panic selling because they wouldn't be able to keep up their expenses because they're over leveraged or overexposed to crypto. So I think the big takeaway here, looking at SAM and FTX as an example, be very, very careful with leverage, manage your risk, and make sure that you have some powder to deploy in the next 6 months.
Thanks, Mitchell. Yeah, helpful advice there. I mean, I know there is a lot of fear in the air at the moment, but one thing I said to my my friends who are like also in the space a couple of days ago was like, the last time I remember it like this, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, was in June, and like historically, yeah, when you see like pure kind of pain on the timeline, and you're browsing Twitter and people are posting like McDonald's memes, and everyone is kind of talking about how they're down bad. I don't think we're necessarily quite there yet, like as bad as it can get, but it's definitely approaching. And yeah, I am kind of thinking about that in terms of deploying more capital, as the great Do Kwon said earlier this year, ahead of his demise. Anton, just to get your thoughts. Obviously, you're kind of navigating Symmetry as well, and we have this pretty brutal downturn. In some ways, feels similar to how 2018 was. How are you looking at the next sort of 3 to 6 months, and how are you kind of looking to play things from an investing perspective?
Thanks. First of all, I really hope that no babe trades the billions without stop losses, no matter how pretty or smart she is. It's just not the way to go. The market.
The thing is, it's the fact that she trades without a stop loss that just gives her that extra, je ne sais quoi.
Okay. I also hope she doesn't lie on Twitter. The company having hedges and stuff like that. And, overall, just hope that the fact like she's a babe kind of like protects her from doing nasty stuff. And more to the point of how the market works next month, like 6 to 9 months. What I really want to first see is the clarity about the entities that were involved with FTX. One of our picks in Symmetry, the recent one, was Aptos, like contrarian move. Like people were trashing Aptos, and we just actually decided to lean in forward, and that was like you just cannot avoid it. It was a mistake because right now there is this like concern over the treasury, even though they issued this "Trust Me, Bro" statement, and I think that we still don't know the full extent, and the same like Christian, you said the Terra downfall caused like the tailwind that potentially also reflected on what we see today, and I see this situation getting better, and better in a way that you can like feel comfortable with investing at the lows, when it either like sometime went and nobody really blew up after that, and no signs of somebody blowing up, or let's say companies start to blow up. We see like more downside action, and it is apathy. I'd like if you want to be like really comfortable and you want to deploy a lot of capital rather than DCA, I think that apathy is what you want to see. It's not like fear. Some people trying to gamble that like tomorrow is going to be like buying, I don't know, like hedges and stuff. Like apathy in the market. Nobody wants to do anything. Almost nobody. I don't know if it's possible. I'm comparing to the previous cycle. So yeah, I'm not sure that like the worst is behind us, but at the same time, DCA might be the answer, and looking for new upcoming projects and testing them early on, like Starknet, ZK, Sync, like anything like that. Just like being active in the space and investing your time rather than money, or investing like very little money. I think it can pay off tremendously. It was basically on the floor. It was lying on the floor, ETHland, and then Aave was lying on the floor for like years. And then we all know what happened. So being like very careful, like Mitchell said, is important. Rule number one: survive. The goal is to survive, and apathy is like what you want to see if you like to deploy capital in one goal rather than like DCA. But DCAing from now is not a bad deal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anton. Yeah, I mean, DCA it's worked for a lot of people. It's not necessarily optimal for the traders among us, but like yeah, I mean, Sam and Alameda were traders, and yeah, they ended up in some serious trouble based on leverage and what have you. Cool. I want to round out. If anyone has kind of a more positive way of looking at things, we've talked a lot about the kind of doom and gloom that this whole crisis has brought on. Naka, do you have your hand raised to say something?
Yeah, I mean, here's a positive spin on it, right? We were in a situation this run where people could basically build just about anything and make money, right? You could build a dog coin, you could build a rebase Ponzi, you could build a useless L1 that bring anything new and just sex it up a little bit. Basically, there was a lot of misallocation of capital, right? You know, money was being sent to make devs build stuff that wasn't really useful. And in order to fix the misallocation of capital, what you need is a big nuke. You need a winter. It needs to be deep. It needs to be long. It needs to absolutely destroy everything. It needs to, you know, basically drive most projects out of business because most projects are shit. And then once you're in that environment where, there's apathy, crypto's not in the news anymore, that environment where, investors will look for good projects and they will allocate money to good projects that are actually going to do something. Not rebase Ponzi's, not Dogecoin clones, not Shiba Inu clones, stuff that's actually going to sort of move us forwards. So, I mean, it's painful, but this is creative destruction, right? This is the business cycle. This is necessary. This is capitalism.
Yeah, thanks, Naka. Cool. Yeah, we've got about a minute left. Tom, do you want to close us out before we sort of wrap up? What's your take on the whole, like, are we bottoming? And yeah, how are you navigating things? And what's like a positive to take from this whole crisis, if there is one?
Well, I think it may be a little bit too soon to like start looking for positives. They will emerge. Like, this is not the end of crypto. They will emerge, but I think mostly right now, I'm just gonna like take time to understand exactly everything that happened. Take time to see how contagion plays out. Take time. It's kind of useless to say like to try spinning it up as like as a good thing. It's obviously a bad thing. Like right now. That being said, it's not the end. If you want a silver lining, I think Congressman Tom Emmer insinuated that Gary Gensler, the chair of the Securities Exchange and Commission, like he insinuated that Gary Gensler was like working with SBF on like getting loopholes like done so that FTX could be in the US. That like FTX International could like work in the US and everything. So maybe it'll take down Gary Gensler. I don't know. I think for now the important is for people to keep playing defense and like let the dust settle. This is not going to be over within a couple of days. We've got like kind of like think on our feelings and like think, like see how things play out. Don't do anything rash, but it's not the end of crypto. The blockchain's still ticking, so that's what matters in the end.
Number one rule to survive.
Yeah, number one rule, survive, and yeah, it's not the end. It does feel severe at the moment, and it's like ripping the band-aid off. But yeah, it's true. Crypto has endured many winters before, and once this one is over, there'll probably be another one after it. And yeah, this is the cyclical nature of this space. Is unforgiving at times, but when there are staggering highs like we saw last year, you get the lows like we have now. And for those who stick around, the rewards of enduring the roller coaster, they can be worth it. That's all we got time for. So I want to thank everyone for listening. Packed a lot here. Still unknowns with SBF. Again, as we called him earlier, scam, bankman, fraud, as is now known. We'll see what happens there. Is it jail time? I don't know. That's what I'm going to be looking into over the weekend. I'm going to speak to some lawyers. As for the market, is the bottom in? Again, hard to say, but Bitcoin looks like it could drop lower. But yeah, there's still lots to come, I think, and this story is developing. We only just saw the bankruptcy announcement today and Sam stepping down, and we really can probably expect like many more kind of major news events to come out of this. So yeah, follow Crypto Briefing. We'll be up to date on this. It's probably the biggest story of the year now, alongside Terra. So thanks for listening. Give us a follow. Make sure you follow our feed, like check out our newsletters and stuff, because we will be unpacking what happened with FTX and SBF and everything in detail over the coming weeks, and the impact it's going to have on the market as well. And yeah, hopefully how to navigate the next few months will become clearer soon, and that's something we'll be providing to readers as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back with another Spaces soon, and take care and hold tight. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Cheers, guys.
Appreciate it.
See you all next week.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Take care, everyone.